Hello and a very warm welcome. This is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. My name is Justin Bemunyi, and Taiwo Zoma is the sign language interpreter. First, let's look at the headlines. Campaign for United Nigeria accelerates as more groups dissociate from planned nationwide protests. Kamala Harris' campaign gathers momentum, gets endorsement from Barack Obama. Plus, African Union sets development agenda for 2063, inaugurates steering assembly. Again, thank you so much for joining us. The three Sahel countries within the West Africa sub-region are still insisting on their separation from ECOWAS. United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed disclosed this after visiting President Bola Tinubu at the State House. And details of this report will come your way in our subsequent bulletin. And now moving on, the federal government is set to participate in the Grand Challenges Nigeria project, a global health initiative aimed at combating malnutrition and food insecurity in Nigeria. Vice President Kashim Shettima unveiled the partnership with the Nutrition Society of Nigeria during a high-level meeting at the presidential villa. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
This meeting is on the need for constructive action over protest, even as Vice President Kashim Shettima acknowledged the hardship being faced by Nigerians due to the recent economic reforms, particularly the removal of fuel subsidy. And as part of the government's response to the nutritional crisis, Vice President Kashim Shettima reiterated the government's commitment to the Nutrition 774 initiative, explaining that the program is carefully designed to incentivize positive changes across communities. The project, a collaboration with the Nutrition Society of Nigeria, is set to promote diversity, equity and inclusion in addressing public health and food system challenges. Leader of the delegation, Professor Hafiz Abubakar, appealed to the Vice President as the chairman of the Nutrition Council of Nigeria to spearhead the government's component of the project and harmonize ministerial support for it.
So this particular project is a project that honestly answers the very big question we are in this time, these very hard times. These are times for looking for solutions, not for protests. And therefore, this project represents actually the future for Nigeria.
The project, which is largely funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, provides context on the initiative's global impact, as since year 2003, the Gates Foundation has invested more than $1.6 billion in health and innovation projects across 118 countries. From the State House, Abdurrahman Jibrila, NTA News.
Now let's move to the United States, where former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle have officially endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Comfort Fashion reports that the former president's endorsement is coming after days of its silence over their support.
The announcement came 5 days after President Biden announced on Sunday the end of his 2024 re-election rematch with former President Donald Trump and endorsed his Vice President Kamala Harris. Biden's immediate backing of Harris ignited a surge of endorsements of Harris by Democratic governors, senators, House members, and other party leaders. By Monday night, the Vice President announced that she had locked up her party's nomination by landing the backing of a majority of the nearly 4,000 delegates to next month's Democratic National Convention. The former president and former first lady are now the final key party leaders to endorse Harris. Barack Obama, in a telephone conversation, greeted Kamala with Michelle chiming in as well.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness.
Barack and Michelle Obama's backing will add to the growing momentum behind Harris' campaign, with polls showing she has already narrowed the gap that existed between Trump and Biden. The country's first woman vice president is seeking to make history again in November after President Joe Biden abruptly announced he will not seek re-election after weeks of mounting pressure on him to quit. Comforts. Fashion. NTA News.
Now, Sri Lanka's first presidential election since an unprecedented economic crisis that led to widespread unrest will now hold in September. This was declared by the Election Commission on Friday, and Comfort Fashion again reports.
The election is going to be the first test of the public mood since the height of the 2022 downturn, which caused months of food, fuel and medicine shortages across the island nation. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, 75, who took office after street protest forced his predecessor to flee the country, has filed his nomination as an independent candidate. He will be facing at least two rivals campaigning against austerity measures that his government imposed to satisfy an International Monetary Fund bailout package.
Gazette නිවේදනයට අනුව සැප්තැම්බර් මාසයේ 21 වෙනිදා
Election Commission Chair RMAL Ratnaike told reporters that the election has been scheduled for September 21st, a Saturday, to ensure a high turnout. Economic issues are expected to dominate the 5-week campaign announced by the Commission as the country emerges from its worst ever recession in 2022, with the GDP shrunk by a record of 7.8%. Inflation has since returned to normal levels from its peak of 70% at the height of the crisis. Wickremesinghe has also successfully negotiated a restructuring of Sri Lanka's $46 billion foreign debt with bilateral lenders, including China, following the 2022 government's default. Meanwhile, the president's main challenger so far is Sajid Premadasa, a 57-year-old and one-time party ally and current opposition leader. Premadasa has vowed to continue with economic reforms and the IMF program, but pledged to cushion the public by reducing the tax increases Wickremesinghe imposed to shore up state revenue. A leftist party is also fielding its leader, 55-year-old former Agriculture Minister Anura Kumara Dissanayake, who is campaigning against plans to privatize state companies. More than 17 million Sri Lankans over the age of 18 are eligible to cast their ballots. Comforts, Fashion, NTA News.
Let's now move to Tunisia, where President Kais Saied has made known his desire to run for a second term in the October presidential polls. The North African country has been in the grips of a political crisis since 2021, when President Saied deposed the government, dissolved parliament, and began ruling by decree.
Kais Saied rose to power in 2019, taking advantage of public anger over the state of the economy and failed promises following the Arab Spring Revolution. With nearly 73% of the second-round vote, the new president had a strong mandate from the electorate. 2 years later, he deposed the government, suspended parliament, and had the constitution rewritten to consolidate his power. Now, with fresh elections rolling around again, Saied says he's still got work to do.
If I had been given a choice, I would not have made any choice. But when national duty calls upon you, there is no room for hesitation. Today, I announce my candidacy for the presidential election on October 6th to continue the struggle of national liberation.
Like most elections these days, the economy is by far the biggest issue. Despite Saied's efforts, growth has been sluggish. GDP only expanded by 0.5% in the first quarter this year, compared to the same period last year. This means the government is struggling to find the funds to pay off its creditors, much less invest in the economy itself.
The president's first term was characterized by fighting against corruption and the chaos which dominated the former parliament, the public sector and the central bank. He paved the way for economic growth and development, which cannot happen without a modern administration. The country's debt is huge. It is still facing many challenges, but the reform has already started.
Kais Said announced his re-election bid while being aware that creating jobs for hundreds of thousands of university graduates is essential for economic and social stability. The next president must offer concrete solutions to unemployment, which has always been the...
The election is now less than 3 months away.
Now, the second session of the African Union Agenda 2063 Ambassadorial Assembly has been inaugurated in Abuja with a challenge to work with AU organs in fast-tracking the march towards the 2063 target. Now, let's have details with Kelvin Onwai.
The inauguration of members of the AU Agenda 2063 Ambassadorial Assembly effectively operationalized the group charged with the responsibility of helping to educate and align the goals of the agenda in their respective countries. This is expected to bring life into the framework implementation of the various aspects of the agenda, especially in education, technology and economic cooperation.
The African Union's Agenda 2063, because we believe that this is an agenda for the people, agenda for the future, and agenda for development.
We work together to achieve greatness, to achieve a peaceful, prosperous, and integrated society, and one Africa.
We are actually talking about Africa in particular. How can we unite Africa? How can we be one? Just like they have AU, or they have United Kingdom and so on. Do you understand? So it is a very important day, and I hope that all what we have discussed at the program venue should be put into actions.
Members of the Ambassadorial Assembly are individuals who have made their mark in international relations and diplomacy with vast experience in African affairs. In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye, NTA News.
The Minister of Youth Development, Jamila Ibrahim, has urged Nigerian youths to be law-abiding and shun the proposed nationwide protest. She made the appeal when she received in the audience members of the newly constituted National Students Management Council. She urged them to stand in solidarity with Nigeria as the country needs peace and stability to prosper. While noting that Nigerians have no other country, the minister reiterated that the government had put in place programs and funding widows to make young Nigerians self-reliant and employers of labor. Now, Ministry of Youth Development has commended President Bola Tinubu's efforts to address the economic hardship faced by Nigerians within his 1 year in office. In an audience with members of the Renewed Hope ambassadors, Minister of State Youth Development Ayodele Olawande appealed to the youths not to be misled by disgruntled politicians to set the country on fire, assuring them that President Tinubu will fix the challenges facing Nigeria, but needs more time. He listed the policies and programs to address the current challenges, to include the disbursement of 10 billion naira to states and FCT for the purchase of CNG buses, suspension of tariff, duties and taxes for the importation of some food and commodities to tame food inflation, and approval of 35 billion naira students loan with a record of 70,000 successful applicants.
We have been engaging the young people in all over the country, and we know your plight. We know we have the can-do spirit. We are begging, we are pleading, and we are saying there are a lot of things to enjoy in this government. The president has made sure that every sector is open. Now people can see the government. People can talk to the government. And the government is listening. before you are a member of the National Council for Women's Societies, before you are a member of the Actors Guild of Nigeria, before you are a member of APC or PDP or Labour, you are first and foremost a Nigerian. That's what we are. That's who we are. Whether we belong to one political affiliation or another, all of us want the same thing. We want peace. We want stability. We want unity. We want progress. We want national cohesion. We don't want anything that will disrupt the flow of this country.
Now, providing conducive learning environment for Nigerian students remains key priority of the present administration. Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, restates this during a dialogue with leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, on challenges facing the sector. Zenret Digmon reports.
As an organized
leadership of
group,
NANS voicing challenges as it affects them. But first, they acknowledged various policies being implemented by President Bola Tinubu to elevate standard of education in the country. But they call for more interventions in the areas of security, electricity, transportation, and food security.
We want to use this opportunity too, that as students, as we have resolved to be law-abiding, not to cause chaos in our society, or not to join those who want to cause chaos in our society. We want to, through the Honorable Minister and the SSA to the President, to please tell President Tinubu to put more attention as well to the student constituency.
Professor Maman appreciates good conduct of the students, as he says all issues raised are currently being tackled. He pledges to ensure that policies regarding education are given optimal attention.
The President had made it very clear to everybody and to us in the ministry that he wants stability in the education system. He does not want any strike, any disruption, which has been the bane of our education system over the years. And for that, he's done everything possible to ensure that the needs of the system are met.
The minister adds that the engagement will now be periodic to build stronger education system. In Abuja, Zenred Dingmun, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We now take a break. The news continues in a moment. To stay with us. Now, since Nigeria signed up to be part of the global anti-corruption fight, domesticating and implementing its tenets have been a challenge for the state. There is good news, says the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi SAN, as his ministry and partners undertake validation of the reviewed National Anti-Corruption Strategy Action Plan 2022 to 2026. Dele Atumbi reports that the plan has been the driving force behind recent successes achieved in the fight against corruption in the country.
Over the years, the common perception has been that corruption is a major drawback for Nigeria's development. With the regulatory reforms embarked upon by government through the national anti-corruption strategies have yielded prosecutions of allegedly corrupt individuals, entities and significant asset recovery in the last few years. Building on this, the federal government in November 2022 reviewed and extended the 2021 anti-corruption strategy to 2026 with a vision to change the culture of corruption in the polity. At a validation meeting in Abuja, Justice Minister Lateef Fagbemi SAN says promoting accountability in public and private life is in everyone's best interests.
The NATS action plan implementation is focused on 5 pillars: prevention of corruption, public engagement, campaign for ethical orientation, enforcement and sanction, and recovery and management of proceeds of crime.
He also spoke on the recent judgment on local government autonomy.
If your governor asks you to go and commit a crime, he will not follow you to Kuje or to Kirikiri. No, you are on your own. So this is a challenge to the anti-corruption agencies
we all have roles to play. So I want to encourage all of us to join hands. Let's be on the same page. It's a common fact, common knowledge that everybody hates corruption in Nigeria.
Acknowledging the link between sanctions and abating corrupt practices, public and private entities with national influence are involved in disseminating the message of probity and accountability. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
The Federal Ministry of Environment has initiated an early action support project workshop to implement the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Charles Alpha reports that the workshop aims to expand and strengthen protected areas and establish effective targets and indicators for the recovery of the natural world. Minister of State for Environment, Dr. Isiaq Salako, explained that the workshop, the validation for national biodiversity targets and indicators, highlights the importance of utilizing tools to reduce threats to biodiversity, emphasizing the guidance provided by the Kunming Montreal Global Diversity Framework.
Now, our environments, our wildlife, our lands, our people, let ambition guide you as you validate the goals, targets and indicators that will guide the Nigerian response to the biodiversity crisis.
The Minister and development partners also addressed the vulnerability of the African continent to climate change, species loss and biodiversity destruction, underscoring the impact of exploitation by other countries, particularly in the global north, on African environments and resources.
Nigeria has placed on integrating agri-food system into its national biodiversity strategy action plan.
And also the Agency of Development, the French one, is really involved on the subject, and we should continue to be involved on environment, biodiversity, climate change, and all the subject on the environment.
Endangered species, that is our focus, and we want to appreciate the support we receive from the Ministry of Environment, and we're here to lend our support.
The framework aims to accelerate action towards achieving the vision of living in harmony with nature by 2050. The federal government is facilitating an investment worth $1 billion in an agricultural mechanization program. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar, says the idea is to create enabling environment for investors under the Greener Hope National Productivity and Large-Scale Mechanization Support Program. Musa Babalu tells us more.
June 2024, the Federal Executive Council approved the implementation of the Greener Hope National Agricultural Productivity and Large-Scale Mechanization Project. The objective is to include the private sector in the promotion of food security initiatives through mechanization. This will include the development of modern agricultural mechanization service centers and hubs in the designated farming clusters across food production areas in 37 locations in the country. Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, says the initiative will include the delivery of assorted equipment to the targeted centers across the country, as well as capacity building for 5,000 participants in precision training, mechanization, and agribusiness.
For implementation purposes, the Greener Hope National Agricultural Productivity and Large-Scale Mechanization Support Program will have the provision of $1 billion facility from private sector financing, a 20% upfront counterpart fund of $200 million, and the related incentives and support.
State government and the FCT are targeted to invest in the projects and farming clusters in their states.
The program envisaged that it's only a model. If we succeed with modeling 2,000, 5,000 in a location, we believe that we'll be able to expand this and ensure that this project can replicate itself as quick as possible.
The aim is to cultivate 150,000 hectares at 25,000 hectares for each of the 6 geopolitical zones, with 10,000 hectares for anchor states and minimum of 2,000 hectares for other participating states. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
A quick check on the weather prospect. This is where we end the news, but before we go, remember to join NTA on the campaign against rape and rapists. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Justin Bemunyi.